24, 286 yards, 3 touchdowns. Still a dude.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
Matt Ryan,
That's a dude.
Heisman Trophy.
Bronco Nagurski Award. Ultimate dudes.
Raji on my left, Herzlich on my right.
2 dudes.
O-line you.
Bunch of dudes.
Dudes to the right, dudes to the left, stuck in the middle with you.
WZBC, the Boston College Radio Network, the voice of the Eagles.
All right, hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Two Dudes Sports Show. Here again on Thursday night. It is 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and we are ready to go. I'm Quinn Kelly, your resident Pats fan, and TJ Hartnett, your resident Giants fan, Devil's Advocate, and interim Seahawks fan.
All of it. All the above. Yeah, so we're going to break down today. I like to excuse myself getting over a cold because if you didn't know, Juno swiped in and basically pounded this entire New England area, and my escapades going sledding and snowball fights and all the above with the snow definitely got to me way too much. So coming over a little bit of a cold, but obviously it's a Super Bowl preview, so I'm here to do the show. Looking forward to it a lot. We're going to break down a lot of different aspects of the game on Sunday, talk about different and interesting topics, and basically who has the advantage overall. So looking forward to a good show, and we'll start it off with whatever topic you want to do because you're technically the real fan here.
All right. I think we'll start off with greatest QB ever. We teased at it a little bit last week. We went through our top 5 quarterbacks. We took off some time this week, did a little research, and I think we both have our list. So, yeah. TJ, go ahead and give me your list.
All right. I'm going to scroll down here, see what we can do. All right. So, obviously, I took a lot of research, a lot of man hours, countless nights in the lab to figure out who are the best quarterbacks of all time. These are obviously my opinions based on the statistics that I've looked up, the championship caliber that obviously relates in. Because you can be a great quarterback and never win a Super Bowl, but obviously it helps. It shows your prowess on the field. So if we're going to start with number 1, I'm not sure if we have a consensual or number 1 or a consensus on that. I'm going to go Joe Montana. Joe Montana is my number 1. Obviously the most amount of rings that a quarterback can have. He leads the league in basically every single statistics that you can imagine. He had some fantastic wide receivers around him. Basically dominated the entire game. Cover to back. One of the best quarterbacks to ever step on the field. So, Joe Montana, my number 1. Number 2, John Elway. John Elway. Another one that broke every single statistic known to man. The quarterback of his era that I would give him. Him and Dan Marino around the same time. Both 2 fantastic quarterbacks. Elway comes out on top just because of the ring aspect, too. Number 3, I have Johnny Unitas, one of the all-time greats. One of the, what do I want to say, landmark or fundamental QBs of all time. One of the first guys to come out and really show what a quarterback can do in the air, on the ground, all around. Number 4, to make you happy, Tom Brady. Tom Brady's going to take my 4th spot. He has 3 rings. He's a fantastic quarterback. I've said it a million times. He makes somebodies out of nobodies. That's how I like to say it. Obviously, he has a fantastic team around him. He always has. So that does favor him. That does help him. But overall, as a quarterback, Tom Brady just gets it done. Fantastic, fantastic quarterback. He's going to have probably another great game this Sunday, but we'll see. That'll obviously help him. I'll help him in the brackets. Number 5, I have Peyton Manning sitting behind Brady. Obviously, head-to-head, Brady takes the cake easily. Manning, based on record numbers, takes it over Brady. But overall, in getting the wins done, the most important thing in the NFL, Brady takes it. Then 6, we're going past 5 right now. 6, I'm going to take Brett Favre. 7, Dan Marino. 8, Terry Bradshaw. 9, Steve Young. And 10, Drew Brees. I put Drew Brees on there just because the amount of statistics, the amount of categories that he's broken over his entire career. Obviously, he has the same amount of rings as Favre and Manning. Not at their level, because he obviously has down years all the time, as Favre and Manning usually leading their teams to at least some type of form of the playoffs every year. So I'll put them in front of them. But Brees, definitely one of my sneaky top 10 quarterbacks.
All right, so after my going through my research, I came out and I got to tell you, TJ, going into this, my goal was to be able to sit here on Thursday night and tell you why, if Tom Brady wins on Sunday, why he's the greatest quarterback of all time. But after going through all my research, obviously a little hometown bias, but I think the statistics speak for themselves, and I put Tom Brady at number 1. So my goal tonight is to tell you why, to hopefully convince you to at least move him up from your 4 spot. So it looks like I got to get him to jump Johnny Unitas, John Elway, and Joe Montana.
Without winning on Sunday, I don't think you can do that yet.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's where I'm at. That's what the next little segment of the show will be to do. But in the meantime, here is my top list of quarterbacks. I have Tom Brady at number 1, just barely ahead of Joe Montana. I think that he's definitively ahead of Joe Montana if he gets the win on Sunday. At number 3, I have Johnny Unitas. Like you said, he was a forefather of the game, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play, and he'll remain that way. No matter how inflated statistics get with the passing league it's becoming, he's still right up there. I have Brett Favre at number 4 and John Elway at number 5. Peyton, I have at number 6. A lot of people question that, putting him not in the top 5 for quarterbacks in NFL history, but I'll show you later. Just through all the stats I've looked at, there's just such a discrepancy between his regular season QB stats and his playoff stats.
Not too surprising.
Yeah. And then that would be 7. I have Terry Bradshaw, 8 Dan Marino, and 9 Roger Staubach, the Cowboys great.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. This is the goal.
Go for it.
Gotta convince you.
I won't say a word. I'll just take it all in.
All right. So basically, my argument is centered around there are 3 aspects to who the greatest quarterback is. It's regular season stats, playoff stats, and Super Bowl victories. Okay. So just going through some playoff stats already, or right off the bat, Tom Brady now holds the record for most Super Bowl appearances. Now that's great. You know, I mean, as a Patriots fan, that's awesome. You love to see him staying relevant. He's ahead of Elway, Bradshaw, Montana, Staubach, Manning, and Favre. Obviously ahead of all of them. Basically, yeah. All right. So to center it around, basically all of my statistics are looking at Brady, Elway, Bradshaw, Montana, Staubach, Manning, Favre, and Marino. Johnny Unitas.
Same as my top 10.
Okay.
Everybody in there. Yeah.
Johnny Unitas, I didn't really look at too much statistically, just because being that he was back in the AFL, he played in the 50s. There's not a lot of playoff information on him.
Sure.
But as far as a regular season quarterback goes, he's right up there. I'll get to that in a little bit. But Dan Marino, obviously the only one on the list with only 1 Super Bowl appearance, the only one on the list without a Super Bowl victory. So that's a setback for him.
Yeah.
Okay. So Super Bowl wins. Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw top the list. Obviously, both went 4-0. Brady has the opportunity with the win to climb into the number 1 spot and tie with them for 4 wins. But right now he's sitting at 3, so he holds that number 3 spot all his own, with Elway, Staubach at 2 behind him, Manning and Favre behind them, and then obviously Dan Marino winless.
Yep.
So if you look at some of the major playoff categories, and I mean we'll talk back and forth, and you can tell me if you think these are a fair judgment of the whole QB. But I looked at playoff passing yards, playoff wins, completions, TDs, passer rating, interception percentage per throw, game-winning drives, fourth quarter comebacks, and then went through and just averaged where they sat at each. Those are the same categories I used for regular season going through, but we'll start with, obviously, with the playoffs, as that's what we're in the mix of. So right now, Tom Brady sits atop the list with over 7,000 playoff passing yards. He's not done yet. Obviously, he's got 1 more game to widen his gap over Manning at number 2. Favre sits at 3, Montana 4, Elway 5, Marino 6. You can kind of see why they're all up in that list. Bradshaw's down a little further at 10, and Staubach's down at 18. Now, you'll kind of notice with a lot of the passing statistics, Terry Bradshaw and Staubach are a little bit behind. And when I was looking at the playoff statistics, I kind of thought, okay, it's a generational thing. They weren't throwing as much. But when you move into the regular season statistics, you see guys from their era like Fran Tarkenton and Y.A. Tittle. They're all ahead of him. Johnny Unitas ahead of him from an even further back age.
Sure.
So as much as you...
A more balanced team they play on, yeah.
Definitely. I mean, Terry Bradshaw had a lot of defensive help. So that's what we'll say on that. Tom Brady leads by 4 games, potential to be 5 games, in the number of wins in a playoff. He's got 20, Montana behind him at 16, Bradshaw, Elway at 14, Favre at 13, Staubach at 11, tied with Manning. Manning, so this is, I mean, as a Patriots fan, it's going to be a lot of trying to prove Tom Brady, but definitely a lot of proving why not Peyton Manning.
Yep.
So Peyton Manning has 11 wins in 24 tries. He holds the record for the most playoff losses. Just shows, he's not the best playoff quarterback and such. Dan Marino behind them, he's 8 for 18. Tom Brady is number 1 for completions with Manning and Favre behind him. Tom Brady is number 1 for TDs with Montana and Favre behind him. I shouldn't hold on to that, I guess. Everybody, so for playoff statistics, I didn't go further than the top 50. So we looked at 8 categories, and only Tom Brady and Joe Montana were able to say they were inside the top 50 on all 8 of those categories. Everybody else was inside the top 7. Only 3 of the 8 quarterbacks were inside the top 25 for all categories.
So a liable one, too. That's what you're...
Yes. Okay. Yep. So for passer rating, Montana's just ahead of Brady. He is 95.6. Brady's at 88.5, tied with Manning at the 13th position for playoff passer rating, and Montana's up at the 6th. Interception percentage in the playoffs, obviously a big statistic. You can't have a quarterback who's turned the ball over. Tom Brady is at number 26 at 2.3, keeping in mind that there's 16 guys who are at 0 who have never thrown a playoff interception, but those are guys like Mark Sanchez and Tim Tebow who have been in a limited number of games. Peyton Manning and Joe Montana are the only other ones who ranked inside the top 50 for that statistic. Peyton at 2.6 and Montana at 2.9. This was a big factor against Brett Favre. I'll explain that a little bit later. He was obviously the gunslinger kind of quarterback. That's why he leads in passing yards and completions. But at the same time, his interception to throw ratio was much poorer than the other quarterbacks. Game-winning drives, Brady has a 2-game advantage on John Elway, and he has a 7-game advantage on any active player. Peyton Manning down at 29th in game-winning drives in the playoffs with only 1. Now that in and of itself's not that bad. That could mean, you're ahead in a lot of games, and you don't have to go on these game-winning drives. But when you look at fourth quarter comebacks, Brady again tied for first with Joe Montana at 5. Peyton Manning has 0 fourth quarter comebacks. So if he gets down in a playoff game and late in the game, he's not coming back. Brady, on the other hand, you can never count out in any playoff game. Makes him one of the greatest competitors.
It's true.
So when I went forward and averaged their ranking in each category, Brady came out number 1 for best average ranking at 5.63. Brett Favre was number 2 of the 7 categories he had. He was 7.71. But Joe Montana fit all 8 categories. Brett Favre wasn't able to do that. If you included Brett Favre's interception percentage, he would have been well below Joe Montana. So again, Brady 1, Joe Montana 2. After that, Favre, Elway, Bradshaw, Marino. Peyton Manning 7th out of the 8 mentioned quarterbacks with only Roger Staubach behind him.
You still got more.
Still got more. I'll try to brief it up.
No, please. I'm actually really interested. This is very interesting because I don't usually think of Peyton Manning to be like this, and I think it's the way that he's hyped.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's a hell of a regular season quarterback.
He is.
He gets it done. He's broken tons of records. The only thing that I'm going to say, right now, I can say it later too, is the amount of more games that Brady's played in over Montana. Would you say Brady's been, 6? There's been 6 appearances? Or how many times has he been in the playoffs?
Brady has been in 28 playoff games, will be 29 on Sunday.
And Montana had?
23.
Okay, so 5 more games to throw.
5 more games.
To throw about 1,200 more yards. Oh. Okay.
So that's
it averages out. Yeah. So it's like a solid.
It's a similar depth of field.
Yeah. So I could see for a 1-2 here.
So So to talk about that, Brady 1, Montana 2 for greatest playoff quarterbacks. Okay. Going into regular season statistics, we look at passer rating. Peyton Manning third on the all-time list. I believe Aaron Rodgers is number one currently. The only one over 100, I believe. So Peyton Manning's at 97.5. Brady is at 5 with 95.9. Then it goes Montana at 10, Marino at 18, Favre at 20, Staubach at 34, Elway at 65, and Terry Bradshaw way down at 137. This was the point in research where it started to look like Terry Bradshaw really wasn't a top 5 quarterback. He had a great defense. Yeah. Everybody knows that. Yeah, he's one of the greatest winners. 4 Super Bowls, 4-0 in the Super Bowl. It's very impressive in and of itself, but it doesn't speak to being one of the greatest quarterbacks. So this is where you really get separated when you combine the two. So for completions, Favre is in first, well ahead of Manning. He's got about a 375 completion cushion. But Favre 1, Manning 2, Marino 3, Brady 5, Elway 6, and then Montana's down at 12, and then at 63 and 95 for Bradshaw and Staubach, respectively. So they're much farther back. And like I said, there are some guys from their age, like Fran Tarkenton, Johnny Unitas well before them, who are right up there. I think Johnny Unitas was top 10 in that category. Brett Favre was number 1 in passing yards, Manning 2, Marino 3, Brady 5. That's what you see a lot. They have 4 out of the top 5 positions. And it seems to always be that way, with Manning and Favre fluctuating between 1 and 2. Manning leading Favre in passing TDs. Brady, given one more season, could move up over Marino, and he wouldn't move. So Breeze is number 4 in passing TDs. Didn't really include him on the list. Didn't see him as a top quarterback. Sure. So Brady won't leapfrog him, but Brady and Breeze both have the opportunity to move ahead of Marino in passing TDs. Brady only needs 28. So that would put him at 4 on the list. Right now he sits at 5, with Elway and Montana, Bradshaw and Staubach, respectively, making up the bottom 4 of the 8 quarterbacks in almost every category. Interception percentage, Tom Brady is number 2 all-time. Nobody comes within 16 positions of him. The next best quarterback at 18, Joe Montana and Peyton Manning, both at 2.6. Brady at 2.0. Again, Rodgers, for the regular season statistics, still young in his career, was at the top in nearly all of them, with a 1.6 interception percentage rating. The only person that broke 2, obviously, and he has a fine cushion over Tom Brady. Yeah. So that's one record that he'll most likely go out holding. And then Marino, Elway, and Favre, and Staubach, and Bradshaw, they're all really far back. Marino at 39, and then everything else just falling from there. Bradshaw all the way at 153 on that, so he threw a lot of picks in his career. Game-winning drives. This is where you see that Peyton seems like he's clutch. Yeah. I mean, he's got the 52 game-winning drives in the regular season, so that's why when you look at it more in depth and you see his playoff statistics, it tells a different tale. Yeah. Marino at number 2 with 51, Elway at 46 at number 3, Brady tied with Favre at 4 with 45, so give him another season. Again, he could move into number 3 there, taking sole possession, beating out Favre and beating out Elway. Montana's down at number 10 with 33. Again, that's one of those things where you say, all right, well, Montana had a pretty dominant team. They weren't required to go on a lot of game-winning drives. Yeah. Bradshaw up at 19, Staubach at 35 in that one in the rankings. Fourth quarter comebacks. Peyton leads this one too. So Peyton's showing he's pretty clutch in the regular season. Again, different story in the playoffs. He had 41. He's got a 5-game cushion over Marino at 2, Elway at 3, Brady at 4, Montana at 5, Favre at 6. So those 6 quarterbacks make up the top 6. Yeah. Very impressive stuff. And then it's a huge gap between Bradshaw at 26 with 19 compared to Favre with 30 ahead of him. Wins, Brett Favre holds the record there. If Peyton does come back, and honestly, I really hope he does, I think he's done so much in his career. I'd love to see him come back, and he will most likely break Brett Favre's number of wins record. Sure. Favre has 86, Manning has 179. It'd be very impressive to see him come back and beat that and get that for himself. Brady sits at 3 with 160 there, Elway with 148 at 4, Marino with 147 at 5. Marino, a really good regular season quarterback, didn't have so much luck in the playoffs. Then Montana at 8, Bradshaw 10, Staubach way back at 32. Staubach has 101 less career victories than Brett Favre. Now, this was the only person that I looked at length of career as really mattered. Right. Staubach had 5 years after he graduated college, where he went to serve our country.
Sure.
So he has 5 years of statistics there that are missing, which is why I think that a lot of his regular season statistics could be much higher than they are. Win percentage, and this one's a big one, so there's 9 categories for the regular season. This one I threw in there. Tom Brady has the best career winning percentage at 773. Staubach at number 2 with 746. Montana at 3 with 713. And then Manning down at 699. Bradshaw at 5 at 677. After that, there's a gap. Elway's back at number 10, Favre at 13, and Dan Marino at 18. So I went and did the average ranking again for this. And Tom Brady came out number 1 again with 3.78. Peyton Manning was 3.89, and then a huge gap after that. Montana at 10, Marino at 10.33, Favre at 11.89, Elway at 16.56, and then Terry Bradshaw at 55.22, and Roger Staubach at 56.78. So I figured, there's got to be a little bit of an outlier here. Everybody has that one category that
Sure.
isn't their best. So I took out the worst ranking that each player had and re-averaged it, and Peyton shot up to 2.13. So that shows that he's at the top of nearly every category.
Yeah.
Brady falls back to number 2, staying relatively the same at 3.63. Favre jumps up to 6. Marino up to 6.75. Montana at 9. Elway at 10.5. Bradshaw up to 43. And Staubach up to 52. And what I thought the most interesting part of this was where you look at where most of these guys took their outlier from.
Mm-hmm.
It was all from interception percentage except for one quarterback besides Brady. So where in that one area Brady has excelled, all of these other quarterbacks, it's been their one weak asset. So just to firm it up, so like I said to begin this, Super Bowl wins, playoff ranking, and regular season ranking. If I look at it, Joe Montana at 1, tied with Bradshaw. Brady at 3, Elway at 4, tied with Staubach. Manning and Favre at 6, and Marino at 8 for Super Bowl wins. Playoff ranking, Brady came in 1. I said Elway at number 2 with Favre at 3, adjusted for the one category that Favre couldn't even touch inside the top 50. After that, Elway, Bradshaw, Marino, Manning way down at number 7, and Staubach at number 8. And then for regular season ranking, I had 2 lists, depending on whether you use the list with the outlier or without the outlier. So with it, Brady 1, Manning 2, Montana 3, Marino 4, and Favre 5, and then Elway, Bradshaw, Staubach. With it adjusted for the outlier, Manning 1, Brady 2, Favre 3, Marino 4, Elway 5, and then the same bottom 3 with Elway, Bradshaw, and Staubach. So the difference being Manning and Tom switching, and Favre and Montana switching. So I just looked at the best stat line, and it puts Brady at 3rd overall in Super Bowl wins, 1st in playoff ranking, and either 1 or 2 in regular season ranking. Nobody else on the list can touch that besides Montana, who could potentially go 1 Super Bowl, 2 playoff ranking, and 3 at his best for regular season ranking if you leave in that outlier of interceptions, which is, if you look at the person he switches with, Brett Favre,
Sure.
that is where Brett Favre's greatest failing in his career was. He did have a knack for throwing untimely interceptions, throwing a lot of interceptions. So while he had some great stats, that's a result of a 19-year career. So far longer than anybody else. But, I mean, you could have Montana go out there for another 4 years and just be throwing interceptions all over the place. So that's how I came to Tom Brady 1, Montana 2. Brady has the potential to be 3-1-2 and Montana 1-2-3. So they're very equal there. But Brady also has the potential to be 3-1-1 and Montana has the potential to be 1-2-5. So I just thought that as it stands now, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback ever. If he wins this game on Sunday, that puts him at 1-1, potentially 1. In my opinion, in the hours of work I put into it, in a very comprehensive statistical analysis of these quarterbacks. Obviously, there's the eye test that goes unsaid, and that's why, like I said, I didn't do a lot on Johnny Unitas, but just seeing him pop up in different lists where he was where he was eligible. That's why I put him at number 3. But I think without a doubt, with or without this win, but definitively with the win, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time.
I'm going to take a sip of my tea. All I know is Eli is 2-0 against. All right, numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. When I say I'm persuaded, yes, I am persuaded, because I mean that's straight up what you told me. Based on, I give Montana the edge because he went 4 for 4.
That's
where I give him the edge. Where Brady went 3 for
5 so
3
far.
for 5. Okay, so he potentially go 3 for 6 potential.
That's true.
But in all the other categories, I always looked at Brady as someone who had a team around him. Now, that's not saying that Joe Montana didn't have a team around him, because he sure as heck did. Brady always had people that, he always had a strong O-line, always had a reasonable defense, especially in these younger years when he started winning. And going forward, he's always been somebody that I look at. He was kind of like the head figure to an organization, but wasn't the best player on it. It was kind of like a team effort every time they won. Okay. That's how I saw him. I mean, that right there is full persuasion for me to say that he's definitely in contention for 1. I mean, honestly. I never looked at it like that. Obviously, when you break it down, it makes a lot more sense. The Peyton Manning statistics in the playoffs shocked me the most, to be honest. Overall, it's between Montana and Brady. I had Elway at 2, but honestly, in your statistics, he's always in the middle of the pack. So he's more at a 4 or 5 position. So if I switched Elway and Brady, I think I would have a stance to say there. I think if Brady does win this one on Sunday, I'm a full believer for saying that he's the best with Montana. If Brady gets one more, then obviously no contention. But like you said, in the other statistic categories, he's up there. He's one of the best. So, I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say.
No.
I think you've made me a believer. That took a lot of time and effort, and I appreciate you for doing that, because I would never think of it, and I don't think the public would think of it as him being one of the best. Sure,
and
he
honestly,
has wins, yeah.
Going through it myself, I really didn't expect him to be as high in the regular season statistics.
I saw him to be like an average 4 or 5 every time.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely up there. He's not one of the best quarterbacks for no reason, but I really believed that he was a little bit more lacking in the regular season. And I think it's as he's gotten older, just as a Pats fan, we've kind of, at least from watching it with my family and different other Pats fans, we've become accustomed to such greatness, and we expect it with him, that when he has like a poor statistic game, it's just such a shock, and you think he's fallen off the wagon.
Right.
When in reality, he's right up there in almost all of these categories. And the biggest thing was he's consistent across the board. Mm-hmm. So he might have been 5 in a lot of categories, but for regular season at least, there was nothing he was outside of the top 10 for. When I went and took away everybody's outlier, Brady's was number 5.
Yeah.
Brady's ranking that was an outlier was a 5. The next best was Manning. Manning's outlier was 18th.
Yeah.
There's nobody who's more statistically sound than Brady. And that's why, I mean...
It's shocking to hear, to be honest.
I mean...
I didn't expect it to be that high.
And I would say that I've always been a big believer in that what makes these quarterbacks the greatest is the Super Bowl wins.
Right.
And the playoff wins and everything. And I think that Tom Brady's statistics are becoming comparable with Joe Montana's. And the reason why I give him the edge is because of how much higher he is in regular season statistics.
Yeah.
Just far outplayed Joe Montana in a similar length career.
You said it. He's there and everything, and like I said, I was surprised to see it. And I think it's more, I don't really know how to, because I try to compare him to a Rodgers, because honestly, if you said right now to most people, who's better, Rodgers or Brady, a lot of people would say Rodgers.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know if it's the way that, and I was going to say it's maybe because Rodgers jumped into a situation where he just had Favre and still a pretty darn good team and just assumed the role. But Brady kind of did that too with Bledsoe. It's not like he had a a crucial collapse year, and I think it's more because the team's always been so good. Like they've never really, I mean, for your lifetime, have they been a subpar team?
Right.
Probably not.
No, not since I was like 1 and 2.
Yeah. So I don't really know how to. I don't know how to pin on why we don't give Tom Brady the credit.
I think, honestly, if I could say anything about it, I think it's just become the status quo. You just forget how good he is. And I think part of it, too, is that season to season, he's outplayed statistically by Peyton Manning.
Yep.
And he's not winning
Right.
the Super Bowl every year. There's somebody new winning it. So you've got Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning, who currently are playing better during the regular seasons statistically. But we've just become so used to him being at the top of the league that you forget just how good he is.
Yeah.
I digress on the topic. I think that's what I got for you.
I mean, I am a full believer now that he belongs in the top 2 spot, just based on those statistics. Based on, I think, the public's perception, that's why I tended to put him a little bit lower. I think that would be my reasoning why. It's also, like you said, I mean, regular season's 16 games, and the playoffs are 3?
Yeah.
So if you skate by in a division, I mean, not to make fun of the AFC East,
no,
but, I mean, come on. AFC East is one of the easiest. It has been just because the Patriots have dominated so much, and the other teams have, have hit rough patches, in all aspects. So I think it's more that it's become the norm, and I don't really know what else to say, but I guess I'm a full believer now. So yeah,
all right.
I put him at 2.
Great. I mean, that's all I needed to hear.
Right?
We'll reassess
Manning's
after. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we'll reassess after the Super Bowl and see. And this is just an interesting question that I've had to close it out, because it wouldn't change very much for me, but I'd be interesting to see. I think, at least for me, it would really throw into question whether he's a number 1. But I just wanted to get your opinion on, if Brady goes out and loses this game on Sunday, then where does he stand?
Stays at 2.
Stays at 2? All
Yeah.
right.
I mean, his statistics are still going to be top of the league unless he just absolutely, blows it beyond all standards and just throws 4 picks or something. That's maybe he's coming to the end. He's still going to be a top 5, just had a bad game. You could say the same for Peyton last year. Peyton in the Super Bowl was atrocious. Yeah. So I don't really know how you want to look at it, but yeah, I still think he sits at 2, where he doesn't surpass Montana if he doesn't get this win.
No,
because Montana it went 4 for 4 while Brady went 50%, which is the biggest statistic of them all.
Yeah.
So you can get your team there so many times, but if you don't come out with the victory, it could be dumb luck, but it could be other reasons too. But maybe he's just a goat in the Super Bowl, like Manning's a goat in the playoffs. It could be like that, but I mean, obviously with 3 rings, are going to say that. And honestly, I think they're going to win this Sunday. So,
all right,
there's my take on it. So yeah,
there you go.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
Of course, thank you for sitting here
Absolutely.
and listening to it. All right, well, with that, we're going to jump right into some Super Bowl analysis. I think you said we're going to go through position by position, give a little comparison, see who has the edge, see who gets a check mark, gets the push, takes the edge. I
think it's pretty simple to start with the first one after that comparison. So our first comparison, we're going to have quarterback. So Russell Wilson, obviously the reigning champion of the quarterbacks, winning last year in New Jersey in pretty commanding fashion, and this year leading his team to the playoffs after having a pretty disappointing start in the Packers game and leading his team back. So he's not one of those guys that he's not. I looked at him the same way I looked at Brady. Obviously, I put Brady a lot higher. I'm not trying to say that they're comparing or that I'm comparing the two, but he's got other things working for him. He has probably the best running back in the league, a fantastic secondary, and that's how I looked at Brady too. He had Gronk and he has all these other people. He had a great linebacking crew back in the day. So obviously they don't compare at all, but obviously if I had to give someone the edge here, it's going to be Brady. Brady's been here 5 times, going on his 6th. Russell Wilson's going against a team that's very ready for this situation, a very veteran-based team that have been here before. If they haven't won, like Gronk Gronk hasn't won right now.
No, Gronk hasn't
So
won yet.
Gronk's going into something where he hasn't won. He's hungry. He wants something. There's other people on the team like that too. There's people like Brady who've been here so many times that I'm sure he's not shaken. So Brady's going to take it over Wilson. If you want to take the running backs, you can go for it.
All right, sure. Running back comparison. Like you said, I mean, I think Marshawn Lynch is near top, if not top, in the league. For all the publicity baggage that comes with him, he still consistently goes out and performs, never lets it affect him on the field. And they have a fantastic backup in Robert Turbin, who I think is going to end up being their starter. I don't think Marshawn's going to stay past this year.
He doesn't really sniff the field with Marshawn, and
It's
nobody
true,
gives him any
it's
credit.
true.
But yeah,
he is a
fantastic young
fantastic
guy.
backup.
Sure.
I mean, LeGarrette Blount has been fantastic in the playoffs for the Patriots. He had a really good season this year since he came over from Pittsburgh. Had a great playoffs last year. But I don't think it's a question. I mean, like, even if you want to say Blount, maybe Jonas Gray and
Sure.
Vereen, like, there's the combo. Vereen is barely a running back,
Yeah,
honestly. So I think that the running back edge definitely goes to Seattle there.
Yeah, I mean, putting the Pats D line versus Marshawn Lynch is going to be fantastic to see. Honestly, I don't think going into this game the key is stopping Marshawn Lynch. That's the main, but that is a lot easier said than done. I feel like he's still going to run all over you guys. He's not going to have a career day, but he's going to get, he's going to break some big runs. Obviously, he's going to have one of those solid days. And I don't really see LeGarrette Blount running over Seattle like he ran over Indianapolis.
No.
So, moving on to wide receivers. This is a game where I feel like wide receivers aren't the big stars at all. I mean, the Pats' biggest guy is Edelman, probably.
Yep.
Maybe Amendola. And they're going against Curse and Baldwin as tops. I mean, those are not big-name playmaker guys. I mean, Edelman is very exciting, same as Baldwin with his responses and how he is as a personality. But, this isn't the game where, last year, who was coming in, Demaryius Thomas and Julius Thomas coming on the scene. I guess the biggest star who's going to be catching the ball out there is going to be Gronk. So
yeah,
I think based on wide receiver, it's pretty evenly split. I would like to say it's going to be a Baldwin versus Edelman type battle. So you can say who's better in that. Special teams wise, obviously give it to Edelman, but overall, I think Baldwin's going to be a guy that they go to a lot if the ground game's not working. So I feel like he could have a really, really big day. And I feel like Brady could just find anybody. So I think in wide receiver, it really doesn't matter because I don't think anybody's really going to dominate.
Okay. All right. I would counter. I'd give the Patriots the edge in wide receiver because of depth, because of ability for multiple guys to step up. I think that what you look at is you're going to see the possibility of both Curse and Baldwin being shut down, and then you're going to have to go to somebody else, just because you've got Revis on one of them and then Browner with help on the other. Whereas I think that if you look at the
you
Patriots,
can even look here if you want to look at wide receivers.
Yeah, sure.
It's Paul Richardson and Kevin Norwood. I mean,
Yeah.
those are not big name guys that you're going to be putting in there. Are going to make they may, but
yeah,
that's a tough thing to fight for.
right.
Well, if you want to look at the Patriots, I mean, I'm sure you know them by heart.
Yeah. I mean, I think
LaFell, I didn't even talk about LaFell.
Yeah, LaFell, Amendola, that's a big one. Other than that, no, it's not much more. I mean, like Brian Timms, I would be surprised if he did anything. Brian Timms is a fantastic story. If anybody out there listening has a chance to look him up, he's a really interesting guy. He's got breakaway speed, but he hasn't really done too much. They haven't hit him. Brady doesn't throw the long ball the way he used to, so it's not really a weapon for them.
It's not a star-studded wide receiver game.
No.
But I mean, it's a game between quarterbacks that are going to turn these guys who are basically no names. I mean, they're not no names, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Into stars possibly.
Right.
Like, I mean, for example, David Tyree was a no name. Obviously, he's a household name up here now.
Yeah.
Same thing with Mario Manningham. He got a huge contract coming after the Super Bowl and went to the 49ers.
Yeah.
So he's not a star-studded wide receiver at all.
No, I mean Deion Branch was Super Bowl MVP, the only year Brady didn't win the Super Bowl MVP along with the trophy. And he was never anything but a hometown hero, really. But yeah, like I said, I would give them the edge because you have three good guys in Edelman, Amendola, and LaFell. Whereas I really think the only big threats are Curse and Baldwin. I'm sorry. Yeah. I hope I don't end up eating my words on that, and somebody else comes out as a big
you're
game.
basically saying 3 versus 2. They have a little bit more depth. I mean, like you said, was it Tim's last night? Yeah. So maybe you can make a case for one of them, but yeah, it's just not a huge wide receiver game.
I don't. Yeah.
I mean, and Seattle's had them. They had Sidney Rice. They had Percy Harvin. They're all gone. So, tight end. I don't really think we need to talk about this that much. Seattle's is who? Luke Wilson.
Luke Wilson. Yeah.
So Luke Wilson versus Gronk. I mean, I think you know who's going to take the advantage there.
Yeah.
Gronk's obviously going to be a lot more heavily covered. Luke Wilson may actually be more productive than Gronk just because of the prowess that comes with being Rob Gronkowski. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Obviously, going in, though, you give the edge to Gronk 100,000%.
Yeah.
O-line. O-line, this is one of them where you're going to look at, first of all, you know Tom Brady's not a runner.
Right.
Tom Brady's not a runner. Russell Wilson is. So you look at completely different formations on the O-line, where obviously they're still trying to protect the pocket. Patriots, basically that's their only job.
Yeah, they live and die by the pocket.
Exactly. Well, Russell Wilson likes to run.
Yeah.
I don't know statistics-wise. I didn't look them up, like sacks and stuff. I mean, Brady doesn't go down often.
No.
And you have a fantastic, fantastic O-line that he's had his entire life. So normally, I think I would give this to the Patriots just because of their pocket pressure that they have.
Yeah.
The pressure that the Seattle D-line is going to bring to the Patriots, if the O-line can withstand it, I think if I had to put like either O-line in their position, I would put the Patriots obviously more comfortable with a situation where you don't have a quarterback who can run.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So next up, defensive line. So I'll pull that up for you if you're not familiar with the defensive line of your New England Patriots. I'll pull it up for Seattle, too, because I'm actually not that familiar with Seattle's.
Okay.
So, yeah, Michael Bennett on Seattle. Fantastic player.
Definitely.
Then you have Tony McDaniel, Kevin Williams, and then Cliff Averill. I know Cliff Averill's a pretty good player, too. So it's not something where it's like your big name, like, I mean, if you want to bring it back to, oh man, I'm going to get the year wrong, was it 08? Where you faced Umanura, Pierre-Paul, Strahan. Actually, I don't know if Pierre-Paul was on the team, but I don't think he was. Strahan and Umanura basically were the two for the Giants. So they were coming after Brady all game.
Justin Tuck.
Thank you, Justin Tuck. I knew it wasn't Pierre-Paul time yet, so... So that's something where it's going to be a little bit of a difference here. I don't know how fast they're going to get to the quarterback. They didn't get to Aaron Rodgers much. They didn't.
No.
So it'll be interesting to see if you want to look at the Patriots here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones, a very good D-end coming in. His second year, he's starting to come into his own. Obviously, Vince Wilfork, just a big mass of humanity in the middle. Mm-hmm. I think he's their best defense against Marshawn Lynch. We'll hope for him to have a good game. And then Chris Jones kind of fluctuates with Silver Silica a little bit, but Chris Jones is a starter. He's average. And Rob Ninkovich has been having quite a few career seasons as of late. He's really come into his own as a really good player. So, I mean, I don't know what you want to say there. I'd give on pressure from the D-line specifically, maybe an edge to the Pats. But all around, it's pretty even. I think,
overall, I'm going to give it even, just because I feel like if you put the Pats D-line going against Tom Brady, they would put a lot more pressure than the Seahawks D-line that they're going to do.
Yeah.
I think what could be interesting is their ability to contain Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Because this is probably the best dual-threat quarterback that they're going to face. I'm trying to think of, other dominant dual-threat quarterbacks. I don't think you didn't play Kaepernick this year.
No, you could say Cam, maybe.
You could say Cam. Did you play Cam this year?
I don't believe we did, no.
Yeah, so this is probably the best dual threat quarterback you're going to face, and it's a lot different from, Andrew Luck still runs, but he's primarily a pocket guy, and before that, Joe Flacco couldn't run to save his life.
Right.
So you're looking at a playoff where you're going to have to take a completely different approach.
Definitely. So
I wonder how that'll Vince Wilfork being the guy that'll clog up the middle against Marshawn, how will he face? He's a very fast guy, but
I think it limits. I think you're going to see a little bit less of Vince Wilfork than you would expect, just because in those in-between situations where it could be a run or a pass, that's when, Vince is not a third down player anymore. Not that he necessarily was, but they tend to keep him off in a passing situation.
Understandably, yeah.
So you'll see a little bit more of Joe Villano. But be that as it is, it'll be interesting to see if Seattle is able to take an advantage in that they run in a pass expected situation when Vince might be off the line because you have to deal with the threat of Wilson getting out of there. So, that could be a hindrance for the Pats.
Sure.
But
yeah, I think this one's a pretty even category, though, just because there's two different offenses that each team's facing, so it's tough to compare. Overall, though, I think I'll give it to the Pats, too. Okay. Linebacker crew, Bruce Irvin.
He could be a really big player in this game. As you said, they didn't get a lot of pressure on the Packers, but Bruce Irvin is a speedy guy, a great pass rusher. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get to Brady once or twice in this game.
Same with Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. Those are all, if not household names, on the cusp of becoming household names. So they have a fantastic linebacking crew in the middle. It's going to be interesting because I'm, in my opinion, Tom Brady is more of a, I'm not going to say dump-off quarterback, but he's more of a slant, 7-yard quarterback.
Yeah.
Getting those, and that's where it comes down to the linebackers. How much will he test the secondary? Probably not that much. Just because he's not going to be dropping 30-yard bombs on Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas. So he's going to have to rely on those, 7 to 12-yard passes, which are, right in the linebacker's wheelhouse. So they probably have the biggest test just because you know the ability of the secondary for the Seahawks.
For sure. And I'd say that the biggest problem for Seattle there is that while they're great pass rushing linebackers, I don't think one of those linebackers is going to be able to match up well with Gronkowski. So I think they're going to have to pull either Cam Chancellor or Earl Thomas up to kind of play spy with Gronkowski.
With the way that I've heard it, actually, I've heard that Cam Chancellor is the one. I don't know if that's proof right now. I've just heard that Cam Chancellor is the one that's going to be primarily faced against Gronk because he's definitely the most physical out of all of them.
Oh, for sure. And I think he poses a great matchup for Gronk, but now you have no safety help over the top in his zone.
Yeah.
So, that could be interesting. Maybe that opens up downfield a little bit, but I do think
how comfortable is Brady throwing the long ball?
Right, exactly.
There's a lot of unanswered questions. We don't know what we're going to see because we don't know how they're coming out.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at the Patriots linebacking crew, Jamie Collins, Akeem Ayers, and Dante Hightower. Yep. Another solid linebacking crew. I know all of them. Yeah, definitely. On the edge of being household names. I don't know who I'd give the edge to. I don't know if you have some expert analysis to try to sway me, but right now I'm leaning towards the Seahawks.
Okay. I'd say, I think of the linebackers on the field, I think Dante Hightower is the best out there in both between both teams.
Okay. I would put him up against
Wagner.
No, Irvin.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I would say Irvin's just not as two-dimensional as Dante Hightower, and that's just why I'd give him the edge.
In the speed aspect, or
in a coverage aspect.
Okay.
And run stopping, I feel like Dante can get up and do that, whereas Bruce Irvin is more. He's definitely developed.
Yeah.
But he is still a pass rushing kind of guy.
Sure. I can agree with that. I think the teams that the Seahawks have primarily played this entire year, they kind of match up with more of the offense that they're running more than the Patriots. So that could pose it. The thing that's really interesting here, it's literally like, I don't want to say East Coast versus West Coast offense, but you're facing two completely different offenses here.
Yeah.
You have Brady, who's going to stand in the pocket or hand the ball off, versus Wilson, who's basically every single time going to be outside the pocket running or, throwing it downfield. So it's two completely different things and more of a run-heavy offense with Seattle. So it's going to be interesting to see how they come out because they are facing two different. If you want to look at Seattle's biggest quarterback that they face this year, consistently they can face year after year is Kaepernick.
Yeah.
So that's what they face. I think their offense is a lot less than the Patriots. That's where their defense needs to step up, so that's why I'm only going to give it to Irvin in this category.
Yeah. I would say that
after.
because of the damage that they can do to the offense they're facing, Seattle has a group of linebackers who have a lot of potential to disrupt Brady and throw him off his game. On the flip side, Jamie Collins is one of the best cover linebackers in the game. He's truly developed into a fantastic player since he's come out. Dante is a good all-around linebacker, but that's not necessarily... I mean, like, you need a run-stopping linebacker, a big, physical... That's where Gerard Mayo, if he was back, obviously he's been gone for ages, but this is where you could have used him against Marshawn Lynch.
This is where you put a Teddy Bruschi, a big name guy.
So I think that Seattle will have the ability to run on this linebacking core, and that's why if you break it past that line of scrimmage, Marshawn's getting into the secondary and getting past that first line of defense, no doubt in my mind. And on the flip side, Seattle definitely has the ability to get to Brady with their linebacking crew. So I'd give them the slight edge there.
I agree with that. And then, not finally, but almost finally, the secondary.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a team coming in with definitely a bigger, hyped secondary.
Yes.
We all know that's Seattle.
Yep.
Would you say that? I mean, this is. I mean, you have a little bias, but would you say that Seattle's is stronger? Because actually, if you want to look at who the Patriots have going up against, they're guys who are under the radar, extremely talented.
Yeah.
And I think these guys are all in the spotlight. And I think that's why I'm going to give the edge to Seattle.
Yeah.
Primarily, just because of the big name guys they have. I mean, how do you beat Sherman, Chancellor, and Thomas? It's tough.
It is tough.
But then again, how do you beat Chung, Revis, and was it Arrington?
Arrington. Well, I mean, Browner.
Yeah.
Mainly. I would say... I think it would be foolish to sit here and try to give the Pats the edge.
Yeah.
I think the Pats have a fantastic secondary. I think they really do.
I
think
do
they're
too,
the second in the
yeah.
league,
Yeah.
though. I don't think you can put anybody's secondary ahead of Seattle. Seattle has a fantastic secondary. It's a very different style. This is going to be one of the most interesting facets of the game. Sherman is going to pick his side. Chancellor will take a man.
Nope.
Revis is going to go on the number 2 receiver for Seattle. So depending on how they play it, I would assume that's going to be Curse. Baldwin will be number 1. So I would assume Curse is going to be the number 2. And that would pretty much shut out Curse from this game. Well, the way the Pats do is they throw Browner on the number 1 with help over the top from either Chung. Usually Chung.
I was going to say that
sometimes
Revis would take Baldwin overall, just because I feel like that's the matchup they want him in. But you saying that the help over the top, I could see a point for Revis taking Curse.
So, I mean, it'll be interesting. I think Seattle has the better secondary. I think it gets evened out in that the Patriots have less weapons to defend in the secondary, whereas Seattle has more people they have to keep track of, more ways that the Pats are going to be able to hurt them.
I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's interesting because I feel like people don't give the Pats secondary a lot of credit. But like you said, they can't. You can't really, based on statistics and star power, rank them ahead of the Seahawks. I mean, I don't have actual statistics to put you here, but I can guarantee that it's a little bit higher.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, and our last category is special teams. So we're looking at a Seattle team where punt return and kick returning being kind of like a non-factor. I would love to see him put Baldwin as a punt returner. And they've done it in the past, and I feel like he can make a lot more plays and have a little more star power. But Sherman's the third string, so that'd be even cooler. But yeah, so Hauschka, phenomenal kicker.
Yeah.
But then again, you're going up against Gostkowski, who again, phenomenal kicker. I can't really remember him missing many this year.
No.
And when you have a punt returner as electric as Edelman,
yeah,
you're gonna give the Pats the edge.
Yeah, I think the Pats take the edge here. I think that, obviously, I'm not familiar with Seattle's special teams as a whole, but I do know that Matthew Slater is the best special teams player in the league. He consistently is going to the Pro Bowl as a special teamer, which is very impressive.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, but like that can be. I only know him from being a Pats fan,
right?
Maybe so. Yeah, I would say just on who's returning the ball, there's the slight edge, and maybe a slight edge in Gostkowski over Hauschka, but I think they're pretty comparable.
Yeah, that's pretty even. So,
so maybe slight edge.
So there's the breakdown. You want to go head coaches?
Head coach. Well, I mean, I don't think there's a question.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Pete Carroll, to be honest. I don't know what it is about him, but I mean,
He
I
gets
would
his
love
players to play for him.
Oh, I would love to play for him, just like I'd love to play for Belichick.
Yeah.
But I don't like Belichick either. Don't get me wrong; those are two of the guys up there that I just do not like. But I love to play for them. Yes, I love their coach. That was the coach of my team. Yes, but overall, I mean, yeah, really no questions. Belichick. I think Carroll's more of an electric coach.
Yeah,
to
for
be
sure.
honest. Yeah, but overall, if you want one guy running the show, I'm definitely going to take the Pats coaching staff.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well,
I think that leans towards the Pats a little bit overall. Not surprising, but we have about 4.5 minutes left. So, anything else you want? I mean, obviously we'll end with our predictions, but anything else you want to leave on the table as a Patriots fan? And I'll make my fandom pitch for the NFC.
Okay. Just as a fan of the Pats, we need it. We need this one. It's been years. Brady needs it for his reputation, I think. Despite the argument that I laid out earlier in the show, I really do think this is he needs it. He needs the win. And I just think that well, I mean, I want it. There's no other way to say it. I want the win.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the game. I think it honestly has the potential to be one of the best Super Bowls
What needs
in a
to
while.
happen? Give me 2 or 3 things that need to happen for the Patriots to win.
Okay, Marshawn needs to be quieted a little bit. So you need to find a way to, while maintaining the kind of personnel that can contain Russell Wilson, you need to also be able to stop the run. So I think Marshawn can't go off. When Marshawn goes off, that entire team just lights up. Okay?
Yep.
I think, number 2, you need to figure out what's going on with Richard Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see the first couple plays if they just go right at him,
I'd love
throw
to
at
test
him,
him,
run
That'd
at
be
him.
so much fun.
And honestly, I mean, he's the kind of guy. I don't think he's going to get in Brady's head. I don't think too many guys do get in Brady's head.
No. Brady sees one thing, and it's a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
That's all he sees is the trophy. It's amazing what he can do to
it is. It is. So I guess I'd say that you don't want Marshawn to break off any big runs,
right.
But I think overall the biggest key to the game, because as great as Seattle's defense is, I think the Pats are going to be able to score on them just because they're such a high-powered offense.
Yep.
I think the biggest key to the game is for the Pats knowing that you're probably not going to completely shut down Marshawn, so you need to shut down Russell's ability to throw. I think if you do that, you limit limit their offense to him scrambling and Marshawn going out there and running all over you. And I think that Marshawn isn't going to beat us. The entire Seattle offense needs to beat us.
For my 3 for Seattle to win, first, it's the exact opposite of what you're saying. Or no, not the exact opposite, but the exact other viewpoint. Marshawn has to go off. Marshawn has to go beast mode. He has to put up, solid numbers. He doesn't have to have a career game. He has to put up solid numbers and challenge the Pats every single time he gets the ball. He can't fool around. He can't play a mediocre game if you want Seattle to win this, because they're not going to win it on the back of Russell Wilson. They're not. It's obvious who the more superior quarterback is and who the most superior offense is.
And they didn't. If you look at their drubbing of the Broncos last year, it was defensive and special teams that made it easy for Wilson.
So that's number 1. Marshawn's got to take over, and I think he can. Number 2, play the same exact game he did last year. And that in saying that, I'm not saying that with the Pats making the same mistakes, because obviously that helps when the Broncos made the mistakes last year. I think Seattle scored differently in every single way, which was awesome. They didn't score the same way twice, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So if you play the same game you did last year, where it was over by halftime, I mean, obviously I'm not going to rule it out with your statistics on Tom Brady, but play the same game with the same mentality. That's what you want to do. You want to come out, have a dominant defense, put the ball in the air. Don't be afraid. And if I had to say number 3, honestly, I think the Seattle defense is going to come out. I don't think your guys are going to run all over the defense. Are you going to score?
No.
Yeah. But I don't think you're going to run all over them. So I'm not going to say anything about the defense. Number 3 for me, Russell Wilson. You can't turn the ball over. You can't.
I don't think they're gonna piss away the chances that the Packers did. I think if Russell Wilson throws 4 interceptions in the first half,
it's tough to throw 4 picks again like he did. Patriots could do it. They put pressure on people, so I could see them doing it. But overall, you can't turn the ball over. You can't. Because you give the Pats one more opportunity, they're going to take it from you. So there's my 3 keys. You want to start? You want me to start with the score? I can start if you want.
You can start,
okay.
yeah.
I'm going to say it. As a fan, as the NFC fan, obviously you want Seattle to take it. Just because for the NFC, I'm a Giants fan. You can't let the evil empire win. For me being in this area, I would love to see it. I would love to see what would happen. Maybe not on Boston College, but in Boston. For the entire area, I think it would be cool. So that would be fun to see. Honestly, in this one, I'm not going to be upset whoever wins. But honestly, as an objective fan looking out in all my credentials, I'm going to say that the Patriots just have a slight advantage. I think they're both fantastic teams. Honestly, I thought the Packers were a better team after that game, after that embarrassing way to lose it. Yeah. Maybe not anymore, but overall, I think the Patriots are going to win it, and I think it's going to be a closer game just because of the way that the Patriots love to keep it close in these types of games like they always do. So I'm going to say 27-24. Pats win it late on a field goal. There you go.
Okay. For me, obviously, like I said, Pats fan, want the win, need the win. At least from me as a fan, I mean, I don't know how other people feel about Seattle, but if there was one team that I had to lose to, I'm glad it's Seattle, I guess.
Sure.
I like what they got going on there. I love the secondary there. So, I mean, am I going to be disappointed if we lose? Oh, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Understandably.
But it's not a terrible person to lose to. They're a very strong team.
Sure.
I think they're going to keep it close too. I'd say right around the same. I'll go 28-24. Patriots take. 28-24. I'll stick with it.
So, Patriots are up by a touchdown. Seahawks get a field goal type thing.
Yeah.
Or Patriots are down by 3, get a touchdown late. Probably that.
Probably that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Tom Brady would never put it past him. So there you go. That's what we have to say about the Super Bowl. We thank you for listening. Obviously, you heard his fantastic rendition of why Tom Brady is the best quarterback around. If you missed it, check us out on YouTube, Two Dudes Sports Show. Thank you for tuning in. I apologize for my throat. I know it wasn't the best. Probably a lot of coughing, but I do apologize for that. We're here. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl, and we'll be back next week to talk about what happened and all other sports around the Heights and around the area. So I'm TJ Hartnett.
I'm Quinn Kelly.
Thank you for joining us. Enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. Here is our song.
Matt Ryan, 21-24, 286 yards, 3 touchdowns. Still a
It's
dude.
better than this. Guys being dudes.
Matt Ryan,
That's a dude.
Heisman Trophy.
Bronco Nagurski Award. Ultimate dudes.
Raji on my left, Herzlich on my right.
Yeah.
2 dudes.
Like that.
O-line you. Bunch of dudes.
Dudes to the right, dudes to the left, stuck in the middle with you.
WZBC, the Boston College Radio Network, the voice of the Eagles.